Without structure, I fall apart. And I'm forcing myself to do this because I'm in love with the idea of documenting myself and documenting my thoughts and expressing and posting it online for people to see. But it's difficult. It's a difficult thing to do because I haven't shaved, I haven't gotten a haircut, and I just don't look my best. And I'm highly self conscious of it. And I sit here like unable to make constant eye contact with the camera because I'm not used to connecting with myself. Because this is a camera, this is me. It's not the content I'm being distracted by. It's not something that I can brainlessly watch and also scroll on my phone to do. But I have no structure in my life. Well, internal. And the moment I have external structure, I thrive. I succeed. I was a great student in school. I'm headed out to college in about a month and a half from now. And I'm excited because, I don't have to deal with anybody else. And I only have to manage my own self. And I can do that. I've experienced it. I've done summer programs. And that's not the thing that I'm worried about. It's actually the other way around. It's the amount of free time I will have. And that isn't usually talked about and people documenting their experience in college because college has this stigma around I was going to say stigma. College has this stigma around it where everyone is busy, you're constantly doing things, but I disagree. I've, I've lived similar to a college lifestyle, not exactly, and there's definitely some differences, key differences, but from what I truly like seen in college lifestyle, you have a lot of time to yourself to decide what you want to do. And the reason everyone seems so busy in college is because they're choosing to be busy. And that's what I find difficult within myself. I find it difficult to stay internally busy, do things for what I want to do. Because all my life, I don't think I've ever stood truly independent. I've always done something with a structure laid out for me, or I've done something that someone has told me to do, and I have no problem doing that. I excel in that because I'm really good at following directions. But now, college, I'm an adult now, and I get to make my own choices. It's difficult to do something productive or do something that makes me feel good about myself because all I've done my whole life is chase that external validation. I, I always chase like grades in school, and while I try to lie to myself and I try to lie to others that it's mostly for the learning, 80% of it was because of the grades. There's there's no dopamine rush higher than I've ever felt than seeing straight A's and knowing I crushed every test. I'm better than my peers. Yes, a little arrogance came into the equation, and that's what fueled me throughout my high school journey. And it was only until my senior year where, well, actually my junior year, where I really started to dial in learning is fun because it's just learning. It's not about the grade. And I've always had that in my mind because you have, I know for me, I don't know for everyone else, but there's this little moral compass that always tells me this is the wrong thing or this is the right thing to do. And every time I felt going for the grade, I'm like, this is not right. This is not right. And eventually, I started to change throughout my junior year, and then my senior year was when it fully hit. That's what I meant earlier. So during my senior year, I actually wanted to learn just to learn, and I would rank my first semester of my senior year to be the most reflectful, no, that's not a word, the most introspective and reflective I've ever been in my life. And that first semester is when I have truly been at peace with myself. And it culminated in getting accepted to Stanford because I applied restricted early action. And I absolutely loved doing the applications. I loved writing about myself, and not in the way that it's braggy, but in the way that makes me think, who am I? So I would spend my weekends waking up at 4 a.m., both Saturday and Sunday, joyful. And I would get up without any coffee, without any coffee, like a latte, without anything apart from like tea. And that tea was decaffeinated. It didn't have any caffeine. I simply rode the high of life. And that's what I did until I completed my Stanford application. And I truly had to dig into myself and pick my brain to be like, who am I? What makes me interesting? And I genuinely love to learn. But as much as I have that skill to solve complex problems and be a team leader, for some reason I find it difficult to apply those skills into my daily life, separate, independent from school. Because school just dictated my life. I spent constantly, I wouldn't say constantly studying, but I studied more than the average person. And I consumed a lot of content, I spent definitely more like 4 hours on YouTube every single day because, I watched when I was eating in the morning, I watched after school. Like, and then it made me question, like, am I wrong for enjoying this? Like doing school and then like doing really nothing out of it. I'm thinking about what I said, and that only slightly makes sense. In essence, I'm trying to portray that I didn't really do shit, but I was highly productive when it came down to being productive. I had really productive highs, and then I've had pretty chill breaks. And like I wouldn't call them lows either because they're necessary. They were mandatory for me. And the thing is, as much as I consume like YouTube content, that didn't affect me. It didn't affect my quality of work. It didn't affect my focus because I was always dialed in whenever time had to come. And whenever during weekends, I enjoyed that shit. It's easy to do something when you truly enjoy it. And I found nothing more waking up at 4 a.m. to write my essays and brainstorm, outline, do that entire writing process was such a joy. And I've been trying to find a way to find that state again. I guess some might call it flow state. And I've known a flow state for a while, but to me, that's not what I want to call it. I just simply want to call it peace because that's all it was. That's what it was to me. I sat down in this exact desk. I had a pencil, a notebook, nothing else. My phone was off. I had a cup of tea right here, and I just wrote for 2 hours. Again and again, reiterating. That was fun. That was so fun. Actually having to think about who I am and as a person. But then second semester rolled around and school is the easy part. When you're given a schedule, it's easy because I just follow it, and then I basically have all my needs met here at home. I'm privileged. I understand that. I'm not privileged like I'm rich, but I'm privileged more than everyone else in my area because my area is a low income area, and yes, my parents are lower middle income, so we do have a slight advantage above other people. And I'm not afraid to say that because that's true. And I'm not gonna pity them. I'm not gonna say that I'm better than them. That's just how it is, and I'm trying to make best with what I had because I didn't always have this. I used to live in a cockroach infested apartment, and my parents were making fucking shit out of it. They came here as immigrants. And, classic immigrant story. Came during crazy recession time, so it's hard to buy a house on an apartment. Like, dude, their stories are insane, and the way I try to do, the way I try to honor them was education, and I I thrive in education in any classroom setting. I was great, and then you realize other people are better than you. So I started to question why, and it was because they had opportunities that I didn't, and their curiosity didn't die out nearly as fast as I. If that makes sense. The only way to I mean, from what I think and from what I've seen, the only way to combat privilege and the educational opportunities other kids get is pure curiosity. My curiosity was larger, and that phase in my life was definitely higher. Sorry, it was definitely longer than most people. I was a curious kid. I loved doing stuff, and I attribute most of that to growing up without internet access. Well, I grew up with internet access, but I could only use it on Fridays after school, and then Saturday and Sunday. Monday through that Friday before school, like you can't. I couldn't use my iPad. I didn't have a phone until middle school. I had a PC, and my dad would turn off the internet on the PC, so it was pretty strict. But I applaud my parents for doing that one thing right. And the difference between my younger brother and me is stark due to his unrestricted access to the internet and how the internet is much different from when I grew up. Along with, I actually played outside with my friends, and now growing up in a suburban area, you don't really have that. Well, at least in my part of the suburb. So I feel like I'm getting a little bit off track, but that doesn't matter. It's going through my mind because I guess it all relates to structure. When I was a curious younger kid and I wasn't so self-conscious, structure and doing things that I wanted to do came easy because if you're a curious kid, you're just gonna do whatever you want to do, and you're not gonna stay on your phone because I didn't have a phone, so you found ways to keep yourself busy that were productive or made you learn, like develop your prefrontal cortex. So the moment I got a phone, I think that's when the decline started to happen. There's definitely, geez, right there. There's been a definite mental decline. Oh, so not mental, cognitive. Though there is mental health problems associated with it at the same time, but that's a different topic. So my cognitive abilities definitely stopped being exponential, and that's normal. I'm not some prodigal genius or some hyper talented kid. I was just a kid that really loved learning about the world. And the moment I was given a phone, that curiosity burnt out. It fizzed out because environment too. When I moved from where I moved to here, the area I was in was much more welcoming, and in a sense was generally cared about the academics of their children. And you also have to know, and I grew up with everyone there. So when I moved, I not only lost that connection, I also felt like this environment here was more hostile because, it's a different group of people I never talked to. I didn't grow up with them. Everyone had their cliques and groups. I didn't know where to fit in, and now I'm becoming self-conscious. And then I stopped caring about education or learning and curiosity, basically I stopped. I think a good marker of where to pinpoint that decline is, I stopped reading full novels and books for like pure enjoyment when I was the summer of fifth to sixth grade, which is the time I moved from where I moved to here. So and I've been trying to rebuild it. I've been trying to find my way back, and it's difficult. You know, I tell myself that I'm going to be productive during the summer, but I don't. I tell myself I'm going to wake up at 6 a.m. like I used to, but I don't. I tell myself that I'm going to study really hard, but I don't, because I am used to having my identity revolve around someone telling me what I should be, what I should be doing, sorry, who I should be and what I should be doing. And now that's gone. And I'm falling apart. So hopefully this is the start, even if it's a rocky start, and I don't really, I'm not nearly as productive as I want to be. But this is my first ever. It's a prologue. A prologue is dialogue is between two because it's two. So it's a prologue is conversation. A monologue is when someone just speaks to themselves. A prologue is after. Is there a prelogue? No. I'm trying to think of a title of the series. I guess we could just call it my rants for now. But I'll see y'all later.